While the left and some liberal Tory grandees have called Farage a fascist, others speaking at the Tory party conference characterised him very differently.
Reform UK is described as right-wing. I want to suggest to you that this shows how far British politics has swung to the left. I do not believe Nigel Farage is a racist, but I do believe, based on what he has said, that he is a socialist. Have you seen what he's saying? He wants to nationalise the commanding heights of the British economy, remove the two-child limit, indulge in other giveaways of stunning profligacy. These proposals, look at them, are way to the left economically of the Corbyn-McDonald manifesto of 2017.
That was the Times opinion writer Matthew Syed, who's just joined the Tories, calling Nigel Farage a socialist. It was part of a wider argument he made about how he thinks British politics has swung to the left.
The real hidden story of British politics over the last 20 years has been a dramatic shift to the left, if we can define the left as a larger state. In almost every sphere, we've talked a great deal about rising public debt. We have seen this not just in the UK, and the French Prime Minister, another one has fallen because France can't get on top of its debt problem. Ours is 100% and rising. Taxation is at the highest level since the 1940s, public spending since the 1950s, judicial review has expanded, regulations have ballooned, the tax code at 20,000 pages is the longest in the world, welfare, 10 million people of working age are on welfare. I could give you dozens of other examples, and yet we think that this is not left-wing because the Conservatives, I'm sorry to say, have presided over a great deal of it.
That was Matthew Syed speaking on Times Radio, explaining what he meant in his speech to Tory party conference. Helena, is he right? Are we living in a more left-wing Britain than we might realise?
I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? Like, you can make a bunch of those statements in a vacuum, and maybe, like, I can understand where he's coming from, right? Taxes are higher, public spending is higher. I'm like, but this is just the nature of an aging society. This is happening all across the developed world. As we are living longer, as we have more retirees, we'll have to pay more to ensure that retirees are able to have dignity in retirement. It's happening in France, Germany, Spain, where it doesn't matter where you go. All of these things are true because of the nature of aging societies as medical science has advanced. That isn't controversial to say that those things are increasing. Does that make us more left-wing, or does that just make us normal? In terms of the discussion that people are having around higher levels of taxation, higher levels of public expenditure as a percentage of GDP than we've had since 1945. Again, this is a function of that aging society. You look at us in terms of other European countries, we are below the median expenditure as a percentage of GDP from the state of all the other European countries, right? We have privatized mail, water, energy. So many things have been privatized in the post-Thatcher era. We have a housing sector that is basically almost all privatized now, like, since we sold off all of the council housing. There's been all of the state's expenditure has essentially gone on, quite a lot of it, as corporate subsidy, right? You maybe could call it corporatism rather than kind of laissez-faire capitalism. But regardless, a lot of these things have only survived as long as they have because of the raw efficiency of things like the NHS, despite having its overall budget as a percentage of GDP reduced from 2010 all the way to 2019. We saw how that went when the pandemic hit. The idea that expanding judicial review is somehow socialist is nonsense, or is somehow moving to the left. And in terms of Farage being a socialist, fundamentally, there is one definition and one definition only of socialism, and is when the workers control the means of production, distribution, and exchange. Nigel Farage wanting us to have water back in public ownership doesn't make him a socialist. It makes him like every other normal conservative party in Europe, right? You don't go up to the VVD and think, well, should you put all of a public utility in the hands of private companies? And they would call you an idiot. They would call you stupid because it is stupid, right? And fundamentally, is Nigel Farage doing it because he fundamentally believes in the power of the state? No, he's doing this because of the nationalist reasons. Because whether or not you're a socialist or not, it is also stupid, whether it's in private hands, for those private hands to be owned by foreign multinational asset management firms. There's a perfectly reasonable, like, nationalist reason to want to have British utilities under British hands. I think they should be in public hands because I believe in the state being the best mediator of something that is completely inelastic in terms of demand, such as the water industry. But to call him a socialist just because he wants to, like, make sure that We have families that were able to have kids because we scrapped the 2-child benefit cap. Like, this was the position of the Conservative Party for decades and decades and decades until Thatcher happened. Like, I saw Rael Braverman tweet out that it was sad that the party of Mrs. Thatcher had been killed, i.e. the Conservative Party was on its way out, was on its last legs, and the MPs who should never have joined had joined the party. I'm like, well, you are kind of right. Yeah, people like Geoffrey Howe and Margaret Thatcher and Lawson and all of those people, they should never have joined the Conservative Party. They should have started a libertarian party and tried to create this absolutely ridiculous, like, free market laissez-faire system that we've kept, this Thatcherite neoliberal consensus that we've kept for decades and decades and decades, which has only led to the state having to bail out the failures of these private entities, like housing subsidy for landlords, over and over and over again. That's the problem, is that when you problem neoliberalism is you always run out of state assets to sell and state subsidy to prop up market failure. That's always been the problem. The Conservatives of old, who I think Nigel Farage is far closer to, would have balked at the idea that we took welfare away from families who need it to be able to continue the reproduction that keeps our society going. And these are the same Conservatives, the same Conservative Party, who are panicking about low birth rates. That's you. That's you that did that. The instability of housing, the kind of destruction of trade union membership and the wages being stagnant and being completely decoupled from productivity, that was you as well. And the fact that we've had to clean up the mess left by private market failure in the wake of Thatcherism, that's the Conservative Party's fault too. And not the fault of the actual kind of Burkean Conservatives of old, but these neoliberal Thatcherites that we have nowadays. They are the real problem. And just because we want to move as a country slightly to the left of the most kind of harebrained Thatcherite nonsense that we've dealt with and had our country ruined by for 45 years, that does not make Farage a socialist, and doesn't mean that our country has lurched to the left. Lurched toward normalcy, maybe, but to the left, absolutely not.